Hey, what's up, guys? It's Lewis at That Convention Guy Collectibles, and today I'm going to share with you some information. If this isn't your kind of video, then my bad. See you on the next one. No unboxing right now, none of that stuff. But I mentioned in one of my other videos that I was going to share some knowledge that I've gotten from going to all the different conventions. And, you know, there's people that have never been, and there's people that have been to a few and maybe just don't know. So I thought I'd go ahead and share some of the things that I've learned. I've gone to probably about 20, 25 conventions, and I learned this stuff through trial and error, and I've learned it from seeing other people either struggle or have some really cool things. So let me grab something off the shelf and I will show you. You know what? I think it's in my closet. So give me 1 second. I'll be right back. All right. So I'm going to start with a story. My very first convention was in New Jersey. So I live in Atlanta. I flew up to New Jersey, packed some things in my suitcase, went up there. It's my first experience. I didn't know anything. And very first person I saw was an actor who played Firestorm in the TV show DC Legends of Tomorrow. And I was really excited to meet him. That was a really cool show. And so I walked up and I got this. I had my pop with me and I got it signed. And there it is. Now, I don't know if you can see that signature. Okay. So he did it in red Sharpie, which, hey, I was just happy to meet him and no big deal. But after he signed it, I looked down at his table and all he had was Sharpies. He had red, he had blue, he had black. And I definitely don't like the black Sharpie unless it's pretty much the only option where it's going to look better than the others. But I did notice that I just didn't love the signature. It was okay. Nothing, nothing wrong with it. But if you look at it, it doesn't pop. Like, it's there, but you have to get nice and close for you to see it. And so I was thinking, I was like, there has to be something better, something that would pop more than just a Sharpie. So here I was in New Jersey, and I had no idea. But I left the convention right after meeting him and getting that signed. And I got in an Uber, went to a Staples because I was thinking I needed some type of pen, or marker. So to me, office supplies, that kind of thing. So I got in an Uber, went to Staples, and looked to see what they had. And I saw something called a paint marker, a paint pen. And I thought, ooh, that might look much better than just a Sharpie. And so I bought a 5-pack. I think it was like $15 or something like that. And I remember I went back to my hotel room I went to the convention and I pulled out the marker, I unwrapped it, I handed it to the next person to sign something. And of course, paint markers need to be primed. They need to be prepared. And I didn't know that. So of course, they didn't have one. They just had Sharpies. And we're talking probably 6 to 7 years ago. So not realizing, I started looking at the directions of the markers and it says you have to prime it and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh. So I sat on the floor of the convention, hundreds of people walking around, maybe thousands, walking around, doing their thing. And here I am with a marker, tapping it and shaking it, looking like a weirdo. And, but eventually I saw ink started to flow. And as I put that on a piece of paper that I had, which was one of my tickets for something, I noticed it looked really good. And so I knew I had made the right choice. I gave up probably about 2 hours, between the drive there, the drive back, and the prime, blah, blah, blah. But I thought I probably made a good choice. But there was only one way to find out, and that was to get something signed. So the very next thing I got signed was another Firestorm pop. But this time I was getting the 3 actors that played him in the show. And so I got this one done. And this, I used an orange Sharpie paint pen. And you can see clearly that it definitely stands out so much better than the red. Okay. Again, you have to find it on this one because it kind of blends. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is bringing markers. After that convention, I realized that most of the celebrities, and again, this was 6-7 years ago, things have changed. But at that point, celebrities had Sharpies. That is what most people had. You'd be lucky if they had some type of silver or gold, but mostly it was just the black, the red, and the blue. So I started bringing that pack of markers that I bought with me to the different conventions. And what I found was that the celebrities were they were like, ooh, I really like this. What is this? Now, fast forward 7 years, most celebrities either have them or have used them. I still do get some celebrities that do not have them. And I also get celebrities that maybe only have 1 or 2 colors. And depending on what your item is, you may not want those 2 colors. So my number 1 tip is to bring your own markers. That is something that I've done, that I do every single time now. And I have had celebrities be like, oh man, I really like this marker. Would you sell it to me? Or, can I trade you an autograph or something for the marker? I mean, you're talking it's probably a $4 marker and they're giving up a $50 autograph. And that's purely because they see how much better it made the autograph look. And I will say that I have given for free many markers out to some of the celebrities. And they're always super appreciative. And I do it because once I see them sign my item and it looks so good and they react so positively, I always feel bad than just walking away for the next collector who's just going to get a black Sharpie. So I have given many, many away. So that'd be my first thing. Now, there are different brands of paint markers. There's Deco, there's all sorts of them. What I would say is that buy them and test them. Test them in your house, test them on paper, test them on something similar to what you're going to get done. That usually will give you a good indication of what that marker is like. I have never had an issue with Sharpie. The Sharpie paint pens to me are awesome. I like the Deco colors. The problem is they're not easily accessible. I've gone to many hobby stores, the Hobby Lobbies, the Michaels, the Joann Fabrics, things like that, and they just don't carry them, or they may have one. The Sharpie paint pens you can get everywhere. They have them at Walmart, Targets, as well as the Staples, Michaels, all that kind of stuff. So I don't get anything from Sharpie to tell you guys this. This is purely just from one collector to another, trying to give you some advice, give you some tips. Bring your own markers. Now, second part of that, which is still part of the markers thing, is make sure that they are prepped. As the marker sits, the ink is different. It dries up and it looks different. So for instance, I wonder if I could, hold that thought. All right, sorry about that. I wanted to show you an example. So this book that I've had done is from Sons of Anarchy, and I've gotten this done in person. And I've used the same red marker from Sharpie Paint Pen. and I've gotten all these different signatures. Now, recently I sent the marker in to a company to do a private signing, like a consignment. I paid them a fee. They got it signed by the person at a convention because I didn't know about the convention and I wasn't able to attend. Now, when I say get your marker ready, what I mean by that is priming it and prepping it so that you get the ink color that you want. Why? Because this same marker that was used here and here was also used right there. And I don't know if you can see the difference, but it is a much darker shade right there than it is here. And that's basically because it wasn't primed enough to get the ink flowing all the way to the bottom. So part of bringing your own markers is to make sure that they're prepared and ready to go. And you'll see the celebrities will even test it for you. Sometimes they'll ask you, is it ready? Most of the time they'll test it just to be safe. And I don't know if you can see, but I've been testing the markers. All those dots is me, kind of dabbing the marker after shaking it to make sure. And I have like 3 big pieces of paper in the garbage already from testing the different markers. So bring your own markers and make sure that they're prepared. Now, side note, this is something you learn when something goes wrong. Paint pens, because they are paint, not just a regular marker, can bleed. So as you're writing, a huge puddle of paint can come out. That has happened to me several times, especially depending on how the person signs. If they're just signing normal, usually don't have a problem. But every once in a while, you'll get somebody that either A, goes super fast, like they think, their autograph is like a work of art. And other times you get people that go really slow. And if they go really slow, I have found that creates more of a pressure of the marker releasing the paint. So you have to be careful with that. What I would suggest, I guess we'll go to tip number 2 that kind of relates to tip number 1, and that is bring alcohol wipes. Not eyeglass cleaner, but pure alcohol swabs. Why? Because they will take that paint pen off of the item. Why is this important? I recently had a display, a big poster from Cobra Kai, and I had like 8 signatures on it. And I recently went to the Atlanta Megacon, and Ralph Macchio was there, aka Danielson. And I was like, you know what? He's the last one I really need for this piece. I've gotten everybody else that I think is key to it. And as he started to go, the marker just leaked. And he freaked out. I freaked out because, again, I had already had like 8 signatures. I probably have $500-600 already invested in this piece. And it bled, and I was like, no. I mean, it was like the bounty commercials, and he was visibly upset that it happened. And he quickly grabbed the paper towel, and he tried, dabbing it up and wiping it up. And now all you have is paint smeared all over the piece. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it just ruined this piece. Now, I did ask him. I didn't have my alcohol swabs with me. They were actually in the hotel room. And I said, listen, if I'm able to clean this up, would you sign it for me again without charging me, of course? And he was like, 100%, just come back to the front of the line and I'll sign it for you. I was able to go home, pulled out my little alcohol swab, wiped it, looked perfect. Looked like nobody had ever even touched it. I was like internally crying. I was so happy because I really did think that the piece was going to be ruined, especially after a $500 to $600 investment that I already had in it with all the different signatures. So I was super thrilled when it all came off. Now, funny story, I go the next day, go up to the front of the line. I mentioned my story, which of course now, they've seen 500-600 people. They're not going to remember me. But as I mentioned the story, his handler came and he was like, oh yes, you're the guy? He's like, how did it come out? And I was like, it actually came out perfect. He's like, oh my God, Ralph was so upset last night. He was telling people that he had ruined this piece and he was really bothered by it, which really made me feel good, because he cared. He cared about my piece. You know, he cared that it didn't turn out great, you know. And again, no fault of his own. It was just a marker. You know, it happens sometimes. But he did fix it, and it looks great, and the piece is up on my site if you are interested. Okay, so that's markers, alcohol swabs, okay?